Good morning, class. Today in science subject, we are going to start with the new chapter number 9, the living organism and characteristic and the habitats. Now, please open your textbook, page number it is 79. So, starting with the chapter, there are two kids, Paheli and Bojo. So, they go for different places where they are interested, and they found that different organism, what they live and what are the habitat or the adaptation they have to survive. So, this is the chapter about the living organism and their characteristic. So let us start with the chapter. Paheli and Bujo went to the vacation to many places of interest. One such trip took them to the river Ganga in Rishikesh. They climbed the high mountains of Himalayas where it was very cold. So Paheli and Bujo go to the North India. So there they please check out whatever the things they found over there. So there was the Ganga river in Rishikesh and they climbed a mountain where the atmosphere was very cold. They saw many kinds of trees on these mountains. So what were the trees like oaks, pines and deodas. So you can see that all these kind of trees are conical shape. Okay, so that whatever the snowfall is there, so snow can move out very easily from their top. So they are very conical shaped trees. So this is the characteristic of the type of the trees which are found in mountainous area. Now very different from one near their homes on the plains. So whatever the type of trees what they found on nearby their house on the plains, it is totally different in the mountainous region. We don't have any conical shaped tree around us normally in the plain region. Yet in another trip, now they go for totally different place. First they went to mountainous region, now they go to Rajasthan. Now this is desert area. And moved on camels through the hot desert. They collected different kind of cactus plants from these trees. Now you can see that in the mountainous region, what they saw, oak tree, pine tree, deodar tree. Now totally opposite, they saw cactus plant which was no leaf were there, with totally full of thorns and only stem. So that was totally different cactus plant. Now finally they went to the trip of Puri and visited the sea beach dotted with casuarina trees. Now on the sea beach there were totally different trees. So they went to the three different places where the surroundings or you can say the habitat for the different trees to survive was totally different. While recollecting all the fun that they had on these trips, a thought struck them. All these places were so different from one another. Some were cold, some were very hot and dry, and some places so humid. And yet, all of them had many organisms. Organisms here means the living creatures, okay, of various kinds. Now, let us move further. Before that, we can have one concept map about this chapter. Now, what do you mean by habitat? Okay. Now, habitat means the surrounding where an organism lives is known as its habitat. Suppose what we need for survive, we need house, food, water, air, and a proper place for our survival. So this is our habitat, we can see. Now there are two components of a habitat, that is biotic component and abiotic component. Now let us move what is biotic component. The living components of a habitat. Now whatever the living organisms are there, they are called biotic. For example, it is given here animal, plants and other microorganisms. And abiotic means non-living organisms. You can have air, water, soil, sunlight, temperature and rocks. So these are non-living. They are called abiotic components. Now what do you mean by adaptation? The presence of certain features of any living organism or habit which enables all the living creatures to adjust and live in its surroundings. Now for us, what is the presence of certain specific features? So what do we need is air, water, food and shelter. Okay. And these all are the things that was required for us to survive or to live. So that is called adaptation. Now what are type of adaptation? Now different type of adaptation are there. One is terrestrial adaptation and another is aquatic adaptation. Now in terrestrial you have desert adaptation, mountain adaptation and grassland. Okay, these three type of adaptation are found in terrestrial. Now in aquatic we have sea and pond, lake or river. Okay, this two we can divide for aquatic adaptation. Ponds, it is pond and river that has sweet water, and sea have salty water, so we can separate it out. Now let us have the picturization over here. Now habitat, surrounding where plants and animals live is called their habitat. Now we have divided habitat into terrestrial habitat and aquatic. Now let us see about terrestrial habitat. Now first for desert, then mountain region and then grassland. So let us talk about desert. Desert, what they have, there is a very scarcity of water, very less water or no water. So in that type of circumstances, how the living organisms survive, that we will find in desert. For example, camel, rats and snakes. Now we will learn about the characteristic of camels, how camels survive in desert region. Now desert plants either have no leaves or they have small and spine shaped leaves to reduce transpiration. Now we know that the feature of leaf, what is the function of leaf, is to do photosynthesis and do transpiration and to provide food to the plant for their growth. But in desert region, what is there? There are no leaves. In spite of that, they have spines, so that they have very less amount of transpiration, or we can say very less amount of loss of water. So that's why they have no leaves, only spine is there. Okay. Now next is mountainous region. Now by mountainous region we have seen that all the animals are of furry skin. Okay, we can have polar bear, you can see yak. So they all have furry skin so that they can protect themselves from very cold climate. And of course conical shaped trees. Now about grassland. Grassland we have lion, deer and etc. all the animals. And normally we know about the grassland area. Now let us talk about aquatic habitat. In aquatic sea animals, ocean we have sea animals, big animal creatures like dolphins, whales, shark are found in oceans. And ponds and lakes we have fishes, small fishes, frogs, etc. Okay, so this is aquatic habitat. Now let us move forward to the chapter. Paragraph number 2, they try to think of a place on the earth where there may not be any living creatures. Okay, now Paheli and Bujo thought that if there any place on the earth where there is no living organisms. Bujo thought of places near his home. Now you can also find out the places near your home or inside your home. You can see the spider, lizard, cockroaches. If you are living near this farm area, you can find out so many small creatures which they are surrounding your homes. Inside the house he tried the cupboards. He had thought that there may not be any living organisms here, but he found one tiny spider in the cupboard. Outside the home he cannot find any of the place where there were no living organisms. So there were everywhere there are the creatures which are adapted to one or another conditions. Now Paheli started thinking and reading about far away places. She read that people have even found tiny living organisms in the openings of volcanoes. So she found out that there are some living organisms where they lived in the opening of volcanoes also. Please go through the article given here. Now first heading, organism and surrounding where they live. Another thought occurred that to Paheli and Bujo was about the kinds of living organisms that were present in different locations that they had visited. Now where they visited mountainous region, desert region and beach. Okay, coastal region. So the desert had camels, the mountain had goats and yak. Puri had some other creatures like crabs on the beach and such a variety of fish being caught by the fisherman at the sea. And then there did seem to be some creatures like ants that were present in all these different locations. So they found different type of animals with different skin and their characteristic, and we will learn about that different creatures that like camel, yak and crab, what type of skin is there and what type of adaptation they have in order to survive in that particular place. And also what they found that the ant was such a creature that was present in all of this different location. The kinds of plants found each of this region were so different from the plant of the other region. So we found that cactus in desert, conical shaped trees in mountainous region, and grassland, it was totally different. Now this is the activity table number 9, where you have to write about the animal, plants and other objects found in different surroundings. For example, in forest, what you found, which type of animal or plants, name the animals or the plants or the object that you found in forest region, in mountain, in desert, in the sea and other. See, for example, in the forest you have tall trees, you have grass, you have, then what type of animals you found? There is lion, tiger. Okay, so this is the thing which you found in forest region. On mountainous you have mountains, rock, you can write conical shaped trees, furry shape, you can have yak, polar bear, okay, in mountainous region. So this is the thing what you can write down in table number 9.1. Let's start with the habitat and adaptation here. What do you find from the plants and animal listed in activity 1? Did you find a large variety in them? Look at what you have entered in the column for the desert. Now here we can enter in the desert, we can enter here, we can have desert, camel, cactus, snake. Okay, so we can have this in the list on desert. So it is very different now from other. So what are the surrounding like in these two regions? In the sea, and the plant and animals are surrounded by saline water. So in sea the water is salty, so we can say saline. Most of them use the air dissolved in it. So already we have learned about that the sea creatures use the oxygen that is dissolved in water for their breathing. There is very little water available in the desert. It is very hot in the daytime and very cold at night in the desert. All the animals and plants of the desert live on the desert soil and breathe the air from the surroundings. Now sea and the desert are very different surroundings, and we find very different kind of plants and animals in these two regions, isn't it? Let us look at the very two different kind of organism from a desert and the sea. That is one, a camel and a fish. Now let us learn about the camel and the fish. Now let us learn about the body structure of a camel. Now here what the body structure of a camel help it to survive in the desert condition. So the camels have long legs which help to keep their bodies away from the heat of the sand. You can see the distance between the sand and the body is you can see it's very long distance, so it keeps the camel keep off from the hot sand and help to keep cool. Now here you can see the leathery mouth that help camel eat spiky plants, and also the stretchy nostrils keep out the sand. Now you can see the eyelashes here. The camel have long eyelashes that help to keep sand out of eyes, and you can see here hair on the back to protect against sun, and a hump for storing food. Now since the camel lose very little water from their bodies, they can live for many days without water. You can see their feet also, they have padded feet that stop sinking into the sand and to protect from the heat of the ground. Please have the correction, padded feet here. Okay, now here you can see the diagram, the fish label diagram. Now there are some things common in all type of fish. Let us find it out. First is they have streamlined body. The body is streamlined which allow them to swim in water. Next is they have slippery scales on their body. This protect them and also help them in easy movement through water. Now they have flat fins and tails that help them to change the direction and keep their body balanced in water. Next is gills. That gills present in the fish help them to use oxygen dissolved in water. Now here we have seen about fish and camel. We see that the features of a fish help to live inside the water and features of a camel help it to survive in a desert. We have taken only 2 examples from a very wide variety of animals and the plants that live on the earth. In all these variety of organisms, we will find that they have certain features that help them to live in surroundings in which they are normally found. So you can see that whatever the adaptation for camel was there and whatever the adaptation for fish was there for their survival is totally different for the different surroundings. The presence of specific feature of certain habits which enable to the organism to live naturally in a place is called adaptation. The presence of specific features or habits which enable an organism to live in naturally in a place. Now what was the certain habit, or we said the features of the fish? It was scales, fins, gills. And what about camel? It was long leg, hump. Okay. Then adaptation of organisms differ depending on their place of dwelling. That is why a fish cannot live without water and a camel cannot live in a sea. The place where organisms live is called habitat. Habitat means dwelling, a place, or you can say home. The habitat provides food, water, air, shelter and other needs to organisms. Several kinds of plants and animals live in the same habitat. Okay, so here is the meaning. What do you mean by habitat? Habitat means the place where we live. Okay, we are the organism, so where we live is called our habitat. So what we need? The habitat provides us water, food, shelter and whatever the needs is required to survive. Now plants and animals that live on land are said to live in terrestrial habits. Okay, terrestrial means related to land. Some examples of terrestrial habitats are forest, grassland, desert, coastal and mountain regions. On the other hand, the habitats of plant and animals that live in water are called aquatic habitats. So the animals that live in water, plants that live in water are called aquatic habitats. Now what the aquatic habitat contains of? It is of lake, rivers and oceans are the examples. Now there are large variation among the terrestrial habitats like forest, grassland, desert, coastal and mountain regions located in different parts of world. Organisms, both plants and animals living in a habitat, are its biotic components. Already we learned that biotic means living organism, that is plants and animals, or we can say human beings, plants and animals, or the living creatures. And what is abiotic? Abiotic are non-living, that is air, soil, sunlight, water, rocks, that are non-living, or we can say abiotic. Are sunlight and heat biotic or abiotic components? Of course, sunlight and heat are abiotic components. We know that some plants grow from seeds. Let us look at some abiotic factors and their effect on seeds as they grow into young plants. Now we know that for the plant, what is required? Air, water and sunlight. So air, water and sunlight are what? They are abiotic. Okay. So we can say that biotic and abiotic are connected to one another. Now this we will learn for activity 2.